We thought we were coming to film a paradise. We discovered a front line. A battle between earth and water, between the ocean itself and the creatures that dwell within it, between the hand that wounds and the hands that heals. So this will not be a travelogue. Here, we speak instead of primal nature, of lost islands, of friendship, of life, of struggle, and of resilience. In truth, it's about immersing oneself in a world entirely removed from our own. Some names on maps stretch distances only to throw open doors in the imagination. One does not simply set out for Raja Ampat. One drifts away from oneself, from one's world, from the familiar contour of reality. As the stopover blur together, the known world unravels, as if the purpose of distance were not to arrive, but to vanish.
Ok, on vient d'arriver, petit palace. Bon, je suis hyper loin des autres. En fait, tout le monde est loin les uns des autres, donc je sais pas encore comment on va se retrouver. Je pense qu'il va falloir traverser la jungle, donc on verra ça.
Here we are in the heart of Raja Ampat, on the island of Cree. More specifically at the dive center of Thibaut, a Frenchman who moved here 6 years ago.
Regulators, masks, boots. We had 4 sets of gears and we started smiling to people on the beach. And you're on the beach? Oh, yes, we do diving.
You wanna dive? Come.
So, I mean, it's my happy place, yeah, for sure.
This will be our base camp for exploring the underwater world of Raja Ampat. The story begins here, on this boat. When I contacted Ludo for this expedition, he assembled a team. And joining us were Nanook, a biologist and dive master, Gerik, dive instructor, Sonny, a dive instructor and photographer, and Marie, who will be my dive buddy and also join the adventure.
For my group, we go to, let's say, 25, 26 meters.
For many of us, corals are just beautiful living structures at the bottom of the ocean. And a bit like fish, they come in countless shapes and colors. We admire them and the marine life they shelter when we dive, and that's it. That's pretty much it. It's what we see when we come here on holiday or dive on coral reefs anywhere else in the world. Just pretty little structure that happen to be there. And yet, on this dive, the first thing that stands out are these artificial grids planted on the ocean floor where corals have been grown. This is one of the first sites in Raja Ampat where locals organization has replanted corals. And that raises the question, why are they replanting corals? Why is this necessary? Is it for us, the tourists, or simply because it's beautiful, because it attracts divers? In fact, if you read up on what's happening on climate change and the oceans, one word keeps coming up: corals.
And when you have half to 1 billion people which suddenly lose their food source in 5 years or 10 years, as it may happen now, suddenly there's the politicians should be like, whoa.
How can such small organisms, so few in number on a planetary scale, have such a massive consequences for us? Coral reefs provide a habitat and protection for countless species of small fish that lives within them and feed on the microalgae that grows on them. It's a complete ecosystem where these small fish maintain a balance by eating the algae and parasites of the coral in exchange for a shelter. These small fish, in turn, feed an entire marine ecosystem of larger fish that hunt around the reef. And this marine ecosystem in turn attracts even larger predators like large fish, shark, turtles, or even rays, which regularly return to the reef to be cleaned by wrasses, small parasite-eating fish. Corals, despite of covering only 0.1% of the ocean surface, are home to 25% of all marine species on the planet. So, coral is the foundation of a complex system, stretching up from an algae cell all the way to large fish. And at the top of this ecosystem, what do we find? Us, mankind, drawn to the reef for fishing or for tourism.
Behind the small one.
For put the same example, if in a house you don't have foundation, you don't have house.
Yeah.
And finally, the coral reef are the base of a kind of ecosystem in the ocean, in the sea. And it's for that, if you want to protect a reef, okay, you can protect the fish, the sharks, all the species, but if you don't maintain the foundation of that ecosystem, you will lose all.
We're going to lose control over the top of the reef and we're going to drift all the way to one of these two islands. You stay down behind the small one.
Here in Ampat, all the fish is caught locally, straight from the reef. As we take advantage of the night to drift over the reef, we watch the fish sleeping peacefully, tucked away in the corals. Here, just a few years ago, before tourism arrived in Ampat, the locals would fish their food on the coral reef surrounding the island. Some of them use dynamite, which, upon exploding, stuns the fish, which then float up lifeless. They also practiced cyanide fishing here, poisoning the reef to flush the fish out. The tropical fish hidden in the reef will emerge, ready to be caught and sold to aquariums all over the world.
Corals, they're very fragile, but they survived us. They will survive us, and they've been there before the dinosaurs, and they're going to be there after us. So it's just that in the process, we're going to lose all the service they provide us.
Now let's look ahead to 2050. By 2050, we will have passed the 2-degree mark average temperature increase. And 2 degrees is too much for corals to survive.
When you have an increase of temperature, you will have a stress for these animals. You are going to see this stress of the bleaching. Yeah, it's for sure, it's evidence that when you go in a reef, you see the bleaching of the corals, and people was living there, they say, no, 5 years ago we didn't have this bleaching. What it will happen? I don't know, and you cannot know, we can just make suppositions. Most of them can disappear.
So there you have it. By 2050, it's likely that coral will almost entirely disappear. When you see this, when you know this, you'd be forgiven for thinking there's no real hope left. That's all over the world. Corals are bleaching and dying, and things are going to get worse. That a massive humanitarian crisis linked to the coral ecosystem is looming, and there's not much left to do against a global phenomenon that we're powerless to stop. And then the best thing to do is to put on a wetsuit and go admire the reef and all the life they contain one last time. And you will be right to think that. But actually not quite. When I say they are disappearing all over the world, in fact, not exactly. Not here. Here it's quite the opposite. In Ampat, the corals and all the marine life have made a massive comeback in the recent years. Why? Because here, Ampat is a textbook example in the fight to protect corals and all the marine life they support. In 2004, the authorities declared the site a marine protected area, banning industrial fishing, dynamite fishing, and cyanide fishing. And this was made possible by one thing: tourism. Tourism generated a new source of income for the locals, which allowed them to move away from industrial fishing and dynamite fishing. Tourism transformed the archipelago's economy and was instrumental in the establishment of a marine protected area. This led to the stunning recovery of the coral and marine species in Ampat. Take these little guys here swimming around us. They are baby black-tip reef shark. A few years ago, sharks were hunted here for their fins. They had virtually disappeared. But thanks to the creation of a marine protected area and local nursery like this one, Ampat is now considered the world's richest and most diverse marine ecosystem. Here, rays come to be cleaned by cleaner fish. On a single dive you can see turtles, wobbegong, sharks, cuttlefish, countless of schools of fish and every imaginable color on the seabeds carpeted with corals. In fact, Ampat is located at the heart of the flow between the Pacific and the Indian Oceans. Its corals are accustomed to strong currents and significant temperature variations. And more than anywhere else, they are resilient and resistant. They could hold the key to finding species capable of withstanding ocean warming and acidification. That's why Ampat is so important. And yet, even here, on a random dive in the heart of the archipelago, we stumble upon this. This is a coral graveyard stretching as far as the eye can see. So, if everything is supposedly fine here, why are we seeing this? To find out, we decided to go straight to the people who did this.
Oh my god. Yes.
How long?
This is Arnaud. He's a Frenchman who founded the NGO Orang Laut, which means people of the ocean, or the sea people on their website. And here, in Paradise, he and his team are fighting for coral conservation. Because while Ampat's coral are incredibly resilient, it's thanks to the archipelago's unique climate condition and the strong currents that's forced them to adapt, but it's also thanks to the work of NGOs like his, which on the ground are fighting to study and help sustain the entire local coral ecosystem. So we decided to dive to see the team's work with our own eyes and understand how they carry their restoration projects. When you arrive at the coral restoration sites, the first thing that strikes you is the sheer scale of the project. The typical reef topography in Ampat for most restoration sites is a gentle slope near the shore, followed by a long incline, and finally a first plateau. And corals are found all along the slope. Here, 15 years ago, local community damaged the reef in 3 ways. Cyanide fishing poisoned the reef and killed the coral in the fishing area. Next, dynamite fishing, where the explosion completely shattered the surrounding reef. And finally, to build a village, they mined the rocks on which the coral grew for construction material. All of this turned the coastal reef into a field of dead coral known as rubble. This rubble is highly unstable. The slightest current or swell can move it. But the corals that survived fight back. To regenerate, they release massive amounts of larvae, which settle on this debris. These larvae grow into new corals. The problem is they are growing on ground that is unstable, and as they get bigger, so do their weight and their drag in the current. So, past a certain size, they topple over and slide down the slope, which kill them in the process and destroy the coral downslope. This creates what's known as a degradation cascade. As they die, new rubble builds up, creating an avalanche that wipes out all the healthy coral located further down. And this is what creates this field of death where rubble flows from a coral graveyard on which nothing new can grow.
What technical technology you use more to use the most for the moment?
The mesh.
Okay.
That's where we build a boat and the deck at the front.
Hundreds of square meters of mesh are deployed down the slope to stabilize the rubble.
We've tried many things with the plastic coated one. So now it's a galvanized one. There is a tiny coat of oil from the factory to avoid it from rusting too fast. And we get it and we install it as quickly as we can so it doesn't really get exposed to rust. And it's a bit thicker and it lasts for much longer. Lots of details that make it that you learn along the way and that makes it work or not work basically.
Now that we have visited the coral restoration sites, we decide to join the team to see for ourselves how they transplant corals onto these grids to recreate the new reefs.
So example, this is a coral. We must touch like this. Like this, and this is two. See? We must check if the coral is move. It's not good, but if that no move,
Yes.
it's good job.
We head to Sul Scuba sites on the seabed of Cree Islands, where the team has deployed new mesh grids at a depth at about 50 meters to stabilize the slope. So, the first step is to explore the surrounding reefs to collect pieces of corals that have recently broken off. As coral grow, they gain mass, and because of the current, very often branches will snap and fall to the seabed. And that is exactly what we are looking for. So, to select a good piece, we check if the fragment still has its original colors. This means it still contains the zooxanthella and can therefore regenerate. Once we have collected the coral piece in a tub, we can begin attaching them to the mesh. For this, we use plastic cable ties. They have the advantage of not rusting and therefore not harming the fragment, while also being extremely strong.
Archaeologists are gonna go crazy, like why is there plastic rings inserted into rocks like this?
Yeah.
Because that's what it was gonna look like in a very long time.
Each fragment is meticulously placed by hand at regular intervals. Over the coming months, as they grow, they will colonize the entire structure and fuse together to form a vast new coral reef that will serve as a habitat for countless species of fish and recreate a new marine ecosystem here. So this Herculean task, led by the organization, is helping to regenerate an entire biological, ecological, and economic system, stretching from the coral all the way to mankind. And above all, it allows them to study on a large scale the restoration of our ocean's reef and marine conservation policies in order to find what works in the global fight against the loss of our reef.
And also when you arrived there was only one bungalow here?
Yeah, it was a single bungalow on the sand there when I arrived. 339 and then 6 at junior, we are on 45.
Yeah, so you can see like how much it grows already in 5 years.
Let's say from 15 to 45.
In 6 years.
In 6 years time.
As tourists, we come to Raja Ampat for the underwater world, for the life, for the corals. If Raja Ampat was able to become a marine protected area, it was thanks to the effort of local organizations, but also in large part thanks to tourism. But tourism is a double-edged sword.
You have probably 60 to 80 different feet that walk along this pier every day.
Yeah.
So
Do you think it's too busy?
that's a good question.
The corals, on which the archipelago's entire population depends, both for food and to earn a living, are increasingly impacted by tourism. To build new houses or new bungalows, for example, coastal plots of lands are cleared. And even on a small scale, the frequent rains here wash away sediments and increase the water turbidity. And the corals suffer directly from this. Unusually murky water can wipe out an entire colony. And beyond the issue of water quality, waste management here is an unsolvable logistical nightmare.
I put in the boat? Yeah.
And how do you do waste management here?
Click.
All the waste that Thibaut and his team collect must be loaded onto his boat and taken to a sorting center all the way in Sorong. And not all the guest houses here have the means to do that. So more often the waste generated by the tourist is burned partially. And once the plastic and microplastics are in the sea, they will settle on the corals and quickly destroy them. That's why the only solution to the problem of coral reef loss all around the world is a community-based approach.
First, it's important, like the local people know what it can represent.
The locals are directly involved in tourism activities and the protection of marine areas.
You cannot arrive and try to change all if you don't have a support of the people, if the people don't understand what you are doing, and also if the people, when you will leave, they will not continue.
And so the reef is not just a backdrop for tourists. For them, it's a source of pride, it's a sustainable income, and it's an integral part of their community.
That's where the work starts being interesting.
But the
Because
thing
we
is,
need to work together with the community and find a solution to keep the number low, and at the same time keep the community happy, you know.
And this isn't a situation unique to Raja Ampat, but to all coral reef systems all over the world. Tourism is what provides the incentive to protect the environment, but uncontrolled tourism will always end up destroying it.
We follow few models around the world. Yeah, we can add easily 500 tourists on this island, but then how long it will take for the reef to die
disappear?
and disappear? So that's the question.
As is often the case in this kind of story, there are no easy answers. It's not all black and white. Coral reefs are an ecosystem on which a large part of the world's population depends and which should be safeguarded individually.